Hey there guys, this is Slamzeron, aka YouTube's Tasuke, and I have completed the Poseidon arc of Saint Seiya. You might know it as Knights of the Zodiac, or Los Caraberos de Zodiaco. I'm learning Spanish, and even still I don't think I got the pronunciation right, but yeah, I finished the Poseidon arc of the TV anime series Saint Seiya, thus concluding the entire original TV anime. Not the original story, obviously, because I know I've got the Hades OVAs and Next Dimension to get through. But I just got finished talking about it on the podcast, which won't be up for a little bit just because of our current scheduling. But I actually finished it this past weekend. I'm recording this on the 14th, on Valentine's Day, though it probably won't go up until a little bit later. But I finished watching it this past week. I kind of watched it in chunks a little bit. I started off watching a little bit of it right after Asgard, took a little bit of a break, watched a little bit more, took another break, and then marathon the rest of it going forward. And I did watch it partially on the PS4, and then I went over to the computer just because when the semester started, I'm just like, I don't want to have to be only able to watch it when I'm at home on the PS4. So I copied over the downloads because I have it downloaded because it hasn't been officially released yet. But I copied that to my computer and watched it there. And it's the same subgroup as before. I believe their name is DYFI, D-YFI. I know there's another group. I'm going to kind of address some of the things that people have said in the comments on the Asgard review. But I will go ahead and say that the subs did improve. So if you're thinking about skipping to Poseidon and not watching Asgard, just because you want either the complete canon story, because Asgard is filler, you can sort of get by with this, but I'll go into more detail as to why it's a little off, maybe. But yeah, I guess it's time to review Poseidon. I will go ahead and say that my story synopsis that I always tend to do with the videos, that's really what makes the reviews the longest part as far as anime is concerned. And I bet there'll be some people out there who's noticed, wait, you've only been doing anime for the past few weeks, and nothing else, and game news and whatnot, and anime news, whatever happened to the video game reviews. Well, they're still coming, but because of my school schedule, I can really I choose to just play games on the weekends just because I can't be asked to bring my consoles or anything to school with me. I do bring either my Vita or my 3DS depending on what I'm playing, but I think I'm just going to kind of focus on the console games for the time being, since those are the ones I need to focus on for the time being. So they're still coming. I will go ahead and say the next big review is probably going to be Dragon Quest Heroes, but this isn't an update video. I don't do update videos. I just make content and expect you guys to understand that I'm not always here for you. No, I am always here for you, but yeah, and anyway, with the story recap and synopsis, as well as the general review, I'm going to primarily talk about it with the, I'm mainly going to focus on the fights, because this being a shonen series for one thing, and also just because there was more action in this arc in particular, I'm going to be mainly focusing on, it's going to seem like I'm focusing on that, but I am also going to talk about the other stuff as well. But there's a lot of fighting in this arc, and I think most of the story is to be told in the fighting as well, especially during the fighting, because this series is really reliant on flashbacks and backstory and character building that way. But it's still good old Saint Seiya, so I guess to start off with, as far as the anime is concerned, it starts off right after Poseidon, because at the end of Poseidon, like Saori gets taken away by the water. I almost said the snow or the wind. I'm like, no, it's water. Poseidon's water, and she was taken by Poseidon, and it turns out that Poseidon is currently using a man named Julian Solo as his host, and Julian Solo is an aristocrat, part of a rich family, and he and Saori met at a party, and he was all like, "I love you, Saori. Let's get married." And she was like, "No." He's like, "What? No one's ever told me no before." And so he gets butthurt. But then he becomes the host for Poseidon, and he's like, "Join me, Athena, Saori, in taking over the world. I'm gonna flood the entire world because it's all bad, and I'm gonna try to make it better." And she's like, "No, I don't like that. I like humans." Like, "Oh, well, then you're my enemy. Then I'm gonna put you in the main breadwinner, and you're gonna drown." And he's like, "Okay, fine. I'll burn my Cosmo to keep the waters at bay or whatever." I don't remember the exact details of the beginning part. Truth be told, I mainly remember the fights, and I think it's because with Brave Soldiers and Soldier Soul, like the big fights and like all the different arcs that's mainly the stuff I remember. But and also the subtitles. It was still at first it was still sort of the kind of mediocre-ish quality. Like it's passable, but it's like it's not like optimal. Like it was still sort of definitely I don't know if it's necessarily speed sub, because I don't know how long it took for them to do this, because I actually think this is an older sub project. But at any rate, and so Seiya and Shun, they decide to go to Atlantis to get Saori and fight Poseidon, and there they meet Mermaid Thetis, and then Shaina comes and helps because they're getting beaten up, and Sea Dragon Canon, who we actually don't know is Sea Dragon Canon, and that's another thing. Like I also have like knowledge of like the later stuff as well. So yeah, playing the games definitely gives you a lot of stuff. But yeah, the Sea Dragon, who we don't know who he is yet, but it's canon. So sorry, spoilers. But then Shaina comes in and helps, and so it's basically a bitch fight. And I think I don't remember how Shun and Seiya are able to escape, but they do, and then they go on to like their big battles. And here it's where they get to like the actual fighting part. Seiya fights a guy named Seahorse Bayan, and they're battling each other, and he's all like, "Oh, you can't defeat me. I'm stronger than your Gold Saints." He's, Poseidon has these warriors called the subs I watched call them Marine Shoguns. I think they're also sometimes called Sea Generals. I think also Sea Marines. And I believe in Soldier Soul and Brave Soldiers, they're called Sea Marinas, I believe. And the armor that they wear is called Scales. And like as you see in the picture with Poseidon's face, it's sort of like a similar sort of like color and design, sort of like the weird coppery thing going on. And one of my favorite lines of Seiya's, besides the, think we still have 12 minutes or whatever during the Sanctuary arc. And here in these subtitles, it's put a little differently, but I could still recognize it. It's when, in the games at least, Seiya says, you're not more powerful than a Gold Saint, and I'm going to prove it. And I thought that was kind of cool. Because, these, at this point, especially in regards to the anime with Asgard, Seiya and his crew are actually pretty strong. They're probably at the general level of Gold Saint, I think. Though I feel like the power scale gets a little confusing because at this point, Seiya is shown with a golden version of his Pegasus cloth. It gets golden. It's only temporary. It's really just like they burn their Cosmo so powerful that it turns gold, and I think it's mainly because of it's explained because it's mainly the remaining Gold Saints use their blood to repair their cloths, and I think because of that, it's mainly the cloths that are as powerful as gold cloths. But at the same time, it's like I don't know. I think it's mainly just because like does this mean that they're technically gold saints then? If they can become as powerful as gold saints and also make their cloth turn gold, like that's actually kind of cool. But you know, I don't know. And he basically, Seiya is able to win. And what they need to do is destroy these pillar thingies to destroy Atlantis and whatnot. And Seiya tries doing his Pegasus for you, Seiken. Doesn't work. Kiki shows up with the Liber Gold cloth and he's like, oh, the old master gave me the cloth and said that you can destroy the pillars with them. So Seiya takes the shield, or the chain shield, because it's on a fucking chain. He uses it, destroys the thing, and then he moves on to the next thing. And then Shun fights a guy, I believe his name is Skila Elo or something. He's like this. All of his attacks are like, the bear attack or the snake attack. Like he's like they call it like the 7 beast thing, I believe. In complete contrast to the Mime fight during the Asgard arc, Shun actually has a pretty good fight, I think. I feel like Shun's fights in this arc are actually a lot better. It just feels like he's not just being completely like beaten up. Like he feels like he actually has a bit more power to him. Like here with this guy, like it's really just like he just wins. Like he's just able to overcome and defeat him. He's all like, oh, I'm gonna kill you, and then Shun's like, nope, and just like destroys like each part of his scale, like all the animal parts of it with his nebula chain. Then he defeats him and destroys the thingamahoozit. Same thing, like, and his cloth turns golden as well. I'm pretty sure it's here it turns gold. Shun actually gets to fight 2 people technically. He gets to fight Sorrento later on, but and then it's after that. The next one we see is Shiryu comes in. He's fighting Krishna, the guy with the dark skin and the white sort of like mohawk hair thing and the spear. And he uses a spear and he stabs Shiryu. Shiryu's like, oh, I'm going to use my shield. Oh, no, it broke. Because, this show always kind of breaks sort of breaks your expectations. I don't want to say break the rules because I don't know if it's necessarily fair to say like, oh no, nothing can break Shiryu's shield. Well, I mean, I'm sure it can be overpowered. We've seen it break before too, so it's not like it can't be broken. It gets shattered. Shiryu takes his cloth off because he remembers that like, oh, Capricorn Shura gave me the Excalibur in my arm, so I can do the Excalibur. So he takes his cloth off, does the Excalibur. Or first he tries to do it, he's like, oh, it hurts, and then he's actually able to do it, and he destroys the Krishna's spear. And then then Krishna, I think he either takes his claw, no, I think he loses his armor, and then he starts meditating and doing like this like force field thing. And Shiryu gets fucking blinded, literally by the light, except he wasn't wrapped up like a douche. So now, I thought that was a little lame because he's like, does he really need to get blinded? I mean, I understand that Shiryu's trope and his battle formula is just being disadvantaged. Like, if Seiya's is to just overcome, like, a difficult enemy and, like, prove himself, and Shun is sort of either the emotional connection, or, depending on who he's fighting, or just it's mainly his distaste for violence. He's a bit of a pacifist. He doesn't want to fight. So that's sort of his challenge. And also just that he's not strong. Shiryu's is just being disadvantaged. He either loses his cloth or his shield gets broken, so he can't really defend that much, or he gets blinded. Yeah, it's like, or he loses a lot of blood. Like, I remember, like, during the Sanctuary, I just felt so bad for him. It was like, I got really into the story at that point, because I was like, you're losing blood. You're going to get hurt. Or he had lost a lot of blood. And, I also understand that kind of the overall point is to show their dedication as saints of Athena and Saori. And what I thought was kind of cool with Krishna is that he uses what I believe is chakra. In the voiceovers of the show, Shiri says chakra. In the subtitles, the subbers called it chi. I imagine they're like structure-wise the same idea, and it's energy. So, and I thought that was kind of cool. I kind of like it when the Saints have to fight someone who's using like a different kind of power, and like how in Yu Yu Hakusho, Shinobu Sensui, he used like that power of like I think spirit energy and chi or something to make like a hybrid. I like it when characters fight like something that's a little different than what they're used to, or something that's a bit more tangible like chi. Of course, Cosmo is supposed to be the chi. I think the idea of chakra in this case is that it's spiritual energy, because Krishna is meditating when he's doing it, but Shiryu is able to defeat him with the Excalibur and his Rozan Shoryuha, which he apparently can just shoot it straight forward now. It's not an uppercut anymore. And it was kind of funny because like he uses the sword of the Library Gold Saint cloth sword to destroy the pillar, and it's funny, he was facing the other way, and he's like, hey Kiki, can you turn me around so I can actually hit the thing? He's like, oh sure, yeah, sorry Shiryu. And so yeah, he's able to break the pillar that way. And then Hyoga is on his way to like take down the next pillar, and he sees Aquarius Camus, his Gold Saint master, or, and I guess in the case of the anime, his master's master. Though in the subtitles they call him his master, and I guess that's fine. It seems like I don't know. It seems kind of like Dragon Ball or certain other shows where they have filler, where the filler is just like in its own continuity, and like when they go back to the canon, like they don't even mention it. Though I feel like here they try to, I feel like, take a little bit more advantage of the filler a little bit. I don't know. The master's master thing might have been a dubism. And he's like, wait, you can't be Camus, you're dead. He's like, I'm not dead, I'm the real Camus. Don't you recognize your own master? No, you're not real, I killed you, I'm gonna attack you, Aurora Execution. Oh, that's my own move, dummy bitch. It's like, I'm the real Camus. It's like, you're the real one. Oh, I missed you, I loved you. And they make out. And no. Of course, what ends up happening is that he gets stabbed by Camus. And then Seiya's on his way, and he finds Eagle Marin, and Marin's all like, Seiya, you shouldn't fight Poseidon no more. You need to give up. He's too powerful for you. And then Seiya's like, why would you say that, Marin? You would never say that. You're always rooting for me. And then of course Marin's like, actually, I'm your sister Seika, and she takes off her mask, and the whole thing, like where she looks like his sister. I understand that like near the end of the Hades OVA, and I think near the end of the story they retcon it, but you know how it is. And it says like, oh, my sister, I've been looking forever for you, and of course he gets stabbed. And so both Hyoga and Seiya are like out of commission. Then Shun, he goes up and he seems like, oh, what's going on? Why are you guys dead or whatever? Or why are you guys passed out? And then Iki shows up, and Iki attacks Shun's like, you're not my real brother, I'm gonna beat you up. And this was kind of cool because Shun is like, he knows his brother, so like he's willing to kind of fight back, and he actually gets close to killing the quote unquote fake Iki, but he pulls back at the last minute. It's like, I know you. He's like, oh, come back, Chains. I know you only look like my brother and you're not the real one, but you still look my brother, and I can't kill someone who looks like my brother. And so Shun gets defeated, and then the real Iki shows up, and it's revealed that the imposter is like this lizard guy who can, I don't remember his actual name. I'm just calling him lizard because he kind of looks like a lizard to me, or some sort of like reptile creature, maybe even amphibian. But he can like read people's minds and like turn into like the person they love to most and like mimic everything about them, and that's how he wins generally. Which you would think would be pretty broken, but and he turns into Shun, and Iki's like, he doesn't buy it because one, and they point this out too pretty early on. It's like, Shun's right there. I can tell like who's real and who's not, and of course the obvious idea that he just turned into Shun right in front of him. But I also think the other thing they were trying to do, which I think might have been, knowing this series, the main thing they were trying to do is to kind of drive home the fact that Iki's dead inside, and that like although he won't enjoy it, like he won't like he's able to kill people he cares about because he's dead inside. He's been to quote unquote hell, and by hell I mean Death Queen Island. Um, so like like he's dead inside, so he's able to like do stuff like that, or like he's able to harm his brother, or at least find some way around it. And he's able to defeat the guy, and the guy's like, oh, there has to be some sort of weakness, and he reads Ikki's mind, and he figures out about Esmeralda. I think Ikki does the Phoenix Genmaken, or the Phoenix Phantom Fist. And I think that's how he's able to beat the lizard guy. And the lizard guy's like, and he finds out about Esmeralda while he's thinking. And it's kind of funny because at first the show makes it look like he actually gets Ikki, but it actually turns out that it's like he's just imagining it. Like he's like imagining it in his head, and he's like, oh, if I had thought of that sooner, I would have beaten you. And then he's dead, which makes sense because he probably doesn't have enough energy to like turn himself into Esmeralda again, or not again, but like turns himself into someone else, particularly a woman, or transform again is what I'm trying to say. He doesn't have enough power to transform again because one, he's about to die, and two, he's probably tired and out of Cosmo. And of course, Ikki, he destroys the pillar thingy, and Shun does as well by being a spaz with nunchucks. I took a screen cap. I don't know. Maybe I imagine it'll be probably used for the podcast preview. I don't know yet. I don't believe I mentioned it on the podcast, mainly just because I was trying to make sure I covered everything within a good amount of time, which we did. But yeah, Shun was like, I'm going to use this nunchuck, and he does like all the moves. I'm just like, is that really necessary? You have a chain. Obviously, you know how to use stuff that's on like a chain or of some kind. And then like he's like, you guys are weak. You suck doo-doo, and you need to stop being pussies. And then he walks up, and Hyoga wakes him. He's like, you're right. I need to stop being a pussy. And he rips his like undergarment thing, like partially, and like he turns it into like a scarf around his neck. I'm like, why would you do that? What's the point of that? Like, are you cold? I mean, it's the ocean. It's probably gonna be cold, so it's probably right up your alley, Hyoga. And he goes off to the next pillar thingy, and there he finds an old friend, Kraken Isaac. And of course, Isaac was his rival when he was trained to be a saint. And they had like a bit of a quarrel, because like Hyoga, the idea behind it was that Hyoga's reasonings for becoming a saint was just so he could be able to see his mom. Like, he would have probably been satisfied just with the training. It was Isaac who was all like, I want to fight for Athena and be a warrior. But Isaac, Hyoga, he tried to go see his mom early by like punching a hole into like the ice where they were training in Siberia, and like swims through the really cold water to like where the ship is. And there's this big wind, this like current through the water that like starts like washing Hyoga away, and Isaac has to save him. And while he's doing it, he gets his like eye jammed in by like an icicle, and like, damn. And so then he sacrifices himself to save Hyoga. And he's presumed dead, but it turns out he's not. And Hyoga's like really bad. He's like, oh man, I feel bad for that day. Like to make it up for it, you can kill me if you want. You could even stab me in the eye. And Isaac's like, okay, stab. And he stabs Hyoga in the eye. And I'm just like, really? Like, I don't know. Like, I thought that was kind of silly. I knew that Hyoga had like an eye thing. Later in the arc, I learned that it's not permanent, but that's a different subject, I suppose. And so Hyoga goes through the rest of like the remainder of like the arc until like near the end, with like his eye closed, and it bleeding. He's like, Isaac, wake up, join the good side. And he's like, no. And I feel like here I've kind of, because I used to think that Hyoga, like, he didn't really have like a formula, and because of that I really liked his fights. I feel like his formula is being emotionally challenged. Um of course, like, he does have some fights where they're not, like, there are some non-formulaic fights in the series that each character has. I do feel like that most of the time the characters have an emotional, or not, but have like, they have like their designated formula fight. Seiya being just and that's probably one like literary writing criticism I can see with it. I personally don't really, it depends on how it's executed overall, but like, Seiya has his as far as I can tell, just overcoming like the difficulties. Shiryu's just being disadvantaged, either losing his cloth, or rather losing his cloth slash taking it off, losing his shield or it breaking, or getting blind, or losing a lot of blood and still winning. Shun, I feel like, is the either just being a weak little bitch, or I shouldn't say that. Shun's cool, sort of, or sort of an emotional thing, like if he has to fight like an illusion of Iki or something, or someone else he likes, or overcoming his distaste for violence and not wanting to fight anybody. And Iki, just whatever. He's generally sort of either the power scale, because he generally like gets beaten up by like the really strong guy, or he like destroys like the enemy or whatever, like in Omega where he destroyed that one guy who like destroys cloth. Hyoga, I feel like either he deals with like heat, or he does the emotional thing. Like here, like with Isaac, in the past he did like Aquarius Camus, that he's fought in like 3 times now. And here it's another example of like with Kraken Isaac. And of course they battle. Like Hyoga eventually overcomes it, and like his cloth turns gold, like everyone else's. And he's able to defeat Isaac. Though before Isaac dies, he tells him, Hyoga, Poseidon is not the only one you need to worry about. There's someone else. Oh, really? Who is? And from the viewer's perspective, they don't say anything. Like, they cut away from it, and then they go back to Hyoga. He's like, what, really? But Isaac does tell Hyoga who it is, and of course, we learned that it's Sea Dragon Canon, who's sort of like organizing the entire thing. And then like the next fight, I believe, is Iki and Sea Dragon, and they're fighting, and Sea Dragon has like a lot of moves similar to Saga. He's like, wait a second, and Iki's like, oh, I fought this guy before, because remember he fought Saga during the end of the Sanctuary arc. He's like, wait, who are you? And it's like, Sea Dragon's like, okay, I'm gonna take my helmet off. And it's like, you're Saga. No, I'm his twin brother, Sea Dragon, or Gemini Canon. It's like, what? And that's where we learn about the whole Gemini Saint twin thing. And there they give a bit of a backstory, sort of, about how like Canon actually planned to want to like kill Athena and take over the world when she was a baby. And so I was like, no, we can't do that. It's like, well, you're not going to stop me. He's like, well, I'm going to have to lock you up until you get your act together. And the whole thing with their relationship is that Saga is trying to fight his dark side and be good, whereas Canon has embraced his dark side, and even though he has like the blue hair, I feel like his design is closer towards the white-haired or black hair, if you're a manga faithful, I guess. He kind of looks like a blue-haired version of the white-haired evil Saga. And what ends up happening is Saga, it's like, well, I'm gonna lock you up then, and locks up Canon in like this little dungeon thing near the ocean, where like the tide and like the flow of the water, it'll what's the word, fill up the dungeon, and Canon will basically drown. But he talked about like this warm light that he felt, and it turns out that like Athena was actually protecting him as a baby, like subconsciously, I guess, or like indirectly. And then we also learned that, while Kenon was trying to survive, he felt like a green glow from a rock in like the back of the or like from a wall in like the back of the prison. So like he destroys it, and there he finds Poseidon's trident. And he grabs it, and then he follows through and goes to Atlantis, and there he finds Poseidon's scale as well as the other scales of the other sea marinas or marine generals, whatever you want to call them. And then after that, Poseidon like wakes up. He's like, "Who dares disturb me?" Like, I'm sorry. Like, and he's like, "I want." And like he's like, "I'm gonna help. You're gonna help me take over the world." Something like that. I don't remember. And one thing I thought was kind of funny because obviously Kenon being a saint, you would think, why is he wearing a scale, or how's he able to use a scale? And he's like, Poseidon's like, "Oh, by the way, who are you?" And then Kenon's like, and he looks over to the sea dragon scale, and he's like, I'm a sea dragon. I'm sea dragon. He's like, "Oh, hi, sea dragon." I'm like, really? You're able to get the armor that easily, and you're able to use it without like earning it? I know that like other people can wear your cloth and whatnot, and you can also what's the word? You can also you can like burn your Cosmo through it, and you can use it. I know that's like the way you're supposed to. Like I remember the first episode, Seiya tried to wear the cloth by just putting it on, but it didn't work, and so he had to actually burn his Cosmo through it in order to actually move in it. But he gets it, and Poseidon's all like, I've decided that my host is going to be this guy named Julian Solo. Keep an eye on him and like raise him to be a suitable host and stuff." And so Canon was like orchestrating this entire thing, which now that I've actually seen it in the anime, I don't really have any. I feel like I'm okay to say this now. I don't really like sort of the use of Canon in this story. Like for a similar reason why I don't really like the whole Mecha Frieza thing, is just because I don't really like it's. To me, it's like they're kind of reusing a villain, and it's like sort of like a bit of a cop out as well as like being lazy. With Frieza, it's a little bit different though, since one, he did look a fair amount different, and two, it was just to introduce Trunks and to start up the androids, and you can even see it as foreshadowing. Since Frieza, he was like all mechanically repaired and looking like a weird cyborg thing. Whereas here, it's like, yeah, he's wearing different armor, and he does look slightly different. He still looks like Saga, like wearing something else. And I just felt like, same with Dragon Ball, if you either skip the filler arc of the anime or you just read the manga, he's gonna look, it's gonna be like going straight from Saga to Saga. Yeah, that's based, and I don't really like that. I would have preferred if they had done some other kind of thing, or maybe had it to where, I don't know, maybe Kenon appeared later and Sea Dragon was someone else. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know, or some other sort of thing. But ultimately, what ends up happening is that Kenon uses Golden Triangle to like send Iki through like some void or whatever, and he basically is doing his thing. And of course, he doesn't want them to destroy the pillars because, one, he wants to win because he's the bad guy, and two, he doesn't want Poseidon to wake up and like take full control of like Julian Solo and basically be all powerful and whatnot. And then Shun fights a Siren Sorrento, who we see near the end of the Asgard arc, who we think is dead, but on like the last episode we learned that he's alive, and he has like this flute thing that's like really powerful. It's called like Dead End Climax, I believe. and it's like really painful and whatnot. This was also a pretty good fight because basically Shun was just all like, "Oh, you're beating me. I have no choice. I have to use my ultimate attack, Nebula Storm, Nebulous Dream." I thought that was actually kind of cool. Like I prefer it when the characters, it's like they're struggling, but it's not like they're completely losing. You know, it's more like they have to like push through and win. I don't really like how. That's one thing I don't really like about Saint Seiya, where it just seems like every fight has to be about rooting for the underdog, and it's just like, and not everything has to be about like going against the odds, because it's like they're already kind of doing that. But and Sorrento doesn't get defeated, or he doesn't get killed, but he does get defeated, and he kind of switches sides a little bit because he starts to suspect that Canon might have something to do with what's been going on, and once he figures it out, he's like, "Oh well, I'm like, what you're doing is evil," and so he temporarily joins the good side, sort of, and he and Iki make a Canon tell them how to like seal away Poseidon in like the little jar thing. While Seiya and Shun, Hyoga, and Shiryu and Shina are going to Poseidon's like throne, and they're fighting whatnot. They're all beaten up and whatnot. And Seiya's trying to do his Pegasus Ryuseiken to defeat Poseidon, but it just keeps hitting him back, and his cloth is getting like busted. And then it shows the Sagittarius cloth, gold cloth, flying over to Seiya to like help him out. It's like, "Oh, Iolo sent his cloth to save Seiya," and so he wears the cloth. And then he tries to do his arrow thing, but it deflects and stabs Seiya in the chest. Like, okay, like if I do this again, it's gonna probably kill me. He does it again because like he can't really do anything else, and he tries it, but then like it gets deflected, but Shina gets in the way and gets stabbed in the back, and they have a little moment. Happens again. Seiya turns around, prepared to get hit in the back, and his reason is like he can't. He says like, I can't let a woman be a human. I can't let a woman be a human shield. But then Shiryu comes in and gets stabbed in the chest with his naked body. And then, Shun also shows up, and basically they all like give Seiya their Cosmo so he can shoot like a really powerful arrow, and it pierces and knocks off Poseidon's helmet because he's not able to like deflect it because it's too powerful. They run over towards the main breadwinner, thinking that they defeated Poseidon, but then it turns out Poseidon actually fully woke up, and now he's in full control, and so he's even more powerful. So he's beating up everybody. He hits Hyoga pretty hard. His cloth gets even more busted, but then the Aquarius gold cloth comes in, and Hyoga puts it on. So now Hyoga has actually donned his gold cloth for the first time. I had seen him do it in the movies, but here I believe this is the first time in the story. And then Shiryu puts on the Liber gold cloth, and that was cool. To me, it's almost like their Super Saiyan form. And I guess, it kind of makes, because, Seiya, he earned the right to have the Sagittarius cloth. With Hyoga and Shiryu, they were both trained by Gold Saints. So, I know in the anime, Hyoga was trained by the Crystal Saint. But in the original story, in the manga, and all the games, he was trained by Aquarius Camus, whereas Shiryu was trained by the Old Master, who ends up being Libra Doko. So they inherit the cloth as well. It isn't until like near the end where Iki and Shun get a gold cloth. And I think it's mainly it's because of their just their birth date. I think it's more like they probably would have gotten it had they had taken it. It could have just been that they were just given the cloth. I don't know. But then they're all trying to fight and whatnot, and they're struggling a little bit. And then Seiya's all like, "Hey," and they try doing the arrow on its own. They try using like the gold cloth, and it still doesn't work. They actually try doing like every single weapon. They all like break, or they all get like cracked. And Seiya's like, "All right, here's an idea. Shuri, you do your Rozan Shoryuha, or your Rozan Rising Dragon, and your Hyoga, I almost said and Hyoga, do your Aurora Thunder attack, and Yu Yu Hakusho me to like pierce the main breadwinner. You know, it's like when Yusuke shot his big spear gun or whatever, and propelled a Kuwabara with his spear sword into Togoro's chest. It's like that basically. And they do that, and Seiya is able to break the main breadwinner and unleash Saori, and they put all their Cosmo into her, and she seals away Poseidon in the jar, and all's good. And they show everyone like kind of smiling, like all's good. And it was kind of funny because like one of the last shots, it shows all like the Bronze Saints and all the good guys, and it shows close-ups of their face, and it's like a pan by thing, like a side thing, and they're all smiling, and it looks like they're smiling off into the distance. But I think what they were trying to do was do like a smiling at the camera thing. You guys are cool. And then it shows Saori, and she's all like, when evil joins the world, or when evil is afoot, the saints will rise to the challenge, like the typical like little monologue thingy. And she's like, my saints will always be here to protect me, always. And that's how the series ends, because this is the last arc they animated. The actual story never finished. It's obviously finished now because we have the Hades OVAs that they did. But yeah, that's the story. Overall, I actually kind of liked it. I thought it was I actually kind of liked it a bit. I was a little surprised. Overall, I don't think the fights were as interesting as Asgard. I think Hyoga and had a better fight. I think Seiya had a better fight. Shun, I think, probably had the worst fights of Asgard with the Mime fight. That was just such a pain. Here, though, in Poseidon, he had two fights, and they were actually pretty good. And them all joining up together and was pretty good. I really kind of like it when they all fight one guy and they're like struggling that to kind of sort of find a good way to defeat him. I like those fights. I think those are more interesting. Like the Aldrich fight in Asgard, as well as the Siegfried fight. I like that. I thought that was actually kind of cool. The subtitles, like I said, it was the same group, so at first they weren't really that perfect. They seemed kind of hard to understand. It was in okay English, and I'm still not entirely sure what the basis of the translation is, for all I know. I suspect that they might have taken the French translation and translated that. I don't know, and because of that, there might be some translation errors. But, like, on episode 105 is when the translation actually got a fair amount better. It became more what you would expect from, like, a decent fan sub. Like, it wasn't perfect. Like, there was still some punctuation. The lack of punctuation really bothered me. There was some, like, spelling and, like, the use of Japanese terminology, like Onisan and whatnot. Which I guess is fitting since it's supposed to take place in Japan, but, and stuff like that. But to me, the quality actually went up a fair amount to where it was in between tolerable speed sub and accurate sub first draft. Like I felt like it had some errors sometimes, but it also felt like it was fairly accurate. It just had like a lot of also technical and like grammatical and whatnot errors and mechanical errors. Was the main thing. And there was even a time where I think they switched dialogue on accident. And of course, there's a lot of swearing in this. There's a lot of F-drums being dropped, even by Shun, who wouldn't say it. And I feel like that's pretty typical of either translators who don't completely have a full understanding of the language yet, or just people who are just trying to get it out quickly. Like when Shiryu's talking to Krishna, and Krishna's like, there's evil in this world, we need to eradicate it with the flood and whatnot. And Shiryu's all like, you stupid fuck, or something like that. Like, you selfish fuck. And when Shun is talking to the lizard guy after he figures out about the illusion and like the mind reading thing, he's like, you sick fuck, you're evil, and like, that's terrible, why would you do that? And I'm like, Shun wouldn't say that. He wouldn't say fuck. He's probably the one character in the entire series who wouldn't swear at all, or at least swear the least. Like Seiya, yeah, he would probably say damn. Like I don't think really any of the characters would say fuck. I think that's a bit of a translation stereotype that like in the Japanese version these characters are saying fuck and whatnot. Maybe in Yakuza or something that's a bit more contemporary, but in something like this, I know they're not saying fuck. I'm sorry. They're just not. And though it was actually a much better much better subtitles, and it was a lot easier to read and kind of take in the story. I think that's part of the main problem with like the early stuff in Asgard. It just seemed like it was just kind of hard to understand because of the way it was written. It was just written weird, and I think that the grammar was just not perfect. I don't know, maybe I was just being a bit easier on it, I don't know. Or maybe I just wasn't used to it for so long, or I don't know. I don't really know what the reason is, but it did seem to pick up a bit for me. I don't know, maybe it's just they were talking less, or the subtitles were smaller and they kind of figured it out. So again, if you are thinking of just skipping to Poseidon, watching this one isn't necessarily a bad thing. And I know someone mentioned another translation that like most people have uploaded, and that seems to be the one that most people have uploaded online. Like I think Kiss Anime uses it, but the problem is the video quality just looks really crappy. Like as you see, this is a screen cap that I took from my computer when I was watching it of the eye catch, and it actually looks pretty clear. Like the one on like Kiss Anime, for example, like it looked like fucking fan sub, or not fan. It looked like sub tape quality is what I meant. Like those old days where like it was like a VHS tape that's like really grainy and staticky footage, and like the subtitles are not even that good. Where they're calling Goku Uncle Goku. You know what I mean? Stuff like that. And when I sampled it a little bit, and the translation didn't seem that different either. In fact, it seemed like it was trying to be super literal too. It was white, and you guys know how I am about subtitles. I generally prefer, I prefer the subtitles to not really be that to not stand out that much, because to me it's like it's more about the content of the show rather than the subtitles. I actually don't even care when people don't subtitle the opening and ending, because I just don't care. Obviously this one did, and that's what that makes me think that this is probably an older project. Of course, the group that has been subbing Super that I've been watching, they also subtitle it, the opening and ending. And it was cool hearing Soldier Dream again with in this arc. And of course, since I have the movies on DVD, I got to see like the really high quality version of this opening with the Poseidon. And yeah, and it was kind of interesting and sombering in a way. I don't know if sombering is the right word, but it was just kind of interesting watching this last arc, because I know that like this is the last arc of the TV series, and like after that it's the OVAs and then the movie. And yes, I am gonna watch the Hades OVA first and then the Heaven movie. So it's going to be Hades chapter Sanctuary, then Hades chapter Inferno, then Hades chapter Elysian, and then after that it's going to be the Heaven Overture movie. And then I guess I'll be done with the original Saint Seiya, and then after that it'll be Next Dimension. I'll read the manga. Hopefully they'll do an anime adaptation. I'd rather them do that. I know they probably won't, but yeah, overall I liked it. It was a nice arc to end the entire thing off. I don't know if I'd call it my favorite. My favorite's really a tie between Asgard and this. I'm not really sure yet. And of course I need to watch the rest of Hades, which I actually started. I know it's on Crunchyroll now in English, with by Cinedigm, who licensed it. So I imagine there's a chance there might be a DVD. I did already watch it, and it's actually, the subs seem actually pretty good. It's definitely a lot more professionally translated, so even if there are some errors, it's like it's like typos and or whatever, or like or like slight mistranslations, like names. Like they called Aquarius Camus Kami already, which was in the Netflix subtitles, I believe, as well. But I'm just gonna watch it on Crunchyroll. So yeah, that'll be a nice treat. Now I don't know when I'll get that done. That's just gonna be whenever I can, because I still need to watch a few other things as well. Like I still need to finish the Buu Saga of Kai. But yeah, this was a good arc. And next up is the Hades chapter, Sanctuary, which unfortunately will be the last Saint Seiya anime with the completely original Toru Furuya cast, not the Omega version. Obviously, they recast some people. I think it was at this point that a Moo's voice actor passed away, who also did Douse, and I think something happened with I think they did some recasting. I'm not sure, but I'm pretty sure they did. But yeah, that's all I have to say about the Poseidon arc of Saint Seiya. It's pretty good. But yeah, this is Flames Veronica YouTube Sasuke signing out. See you later.